Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It seems like it's been a very volatile few weeks in the world, and if you're anything like me, you're probably doing your best not to drown yourself in too much news, and you might even have a feeling of internal discomfort. Recognizing that, I felt it might be timely to focus on something practical and maybe even a little bit optimistic by providing a real-life example of leadership competencies that result in growing trust and growing respect from those who follow. What better opportunity than to focus on my own country's leader? If you've had the privilege of watching Canadian Prime Minister Carney speak, especially recently, you might have noticed something interesting. People don't just listen to him, they lean in and they become captivated by his words and message. And that kind of leadership is definitely worth exploring, in my opinion. Today, I don't want to only focus on his speech at Davos, as I believe that that's been assessed and picked apart in detail by every expert out there. Instead, I want to break down why Carney's leadership style resonates so strongly, and how it connects to core leadership qualities people genuinely want to follow right now. Here's what I'm talking about. Competencies such as transparency, trust, confidence, honesty, calm, vision, and, it might be surprising, the art of storytelling. This isn't about politics, so this is not about choosing a political stance. It's about demonstrating leadership behavior. So regardless of which side of the political aisle you're on, this video is strictly about demonstrating why Carney has such large support right now. But before we get into it, if you do like this type of video, please take a moment to support my channel by subscribing, like my content, maybe watch some of my other videos. I'm in the early stages of growing my channel, and every little bit of support really makes a difference. I appreciate it in advance. So now let's get into it. Let's start with transparency, explaining the why, not just the what. One of Carney's most consistent leadership traits is how clearly he explains complex issues. At Davos, for example, and actually throughout his career, he doesn't oversimplify, but he also doesn't hide behind jargon. Well, in his case, maybe a bit of jargon. He walks people through the reasoning, the trade-offs, the uncertainty, and that's a clear demonstration of transparency. Strong leaders don't pretend everything is simple. They help people understand why decisions are being made, even if the answer might be a bit uncomfortable. Transparency builds credibility because it actually respects people's intelligence. And leaders don't always have to be the smartest person in the room. Number 2, trust. Consistency over performance. Trust isn't built by big speeches, that's not what I'm saying. It's built by predictable integrity, something that you can recognize and doesn't change every time there's a different situation. Carney's tone, his values, and his framing are remarkably consistent, whether he's speaking to global leaders, financial institutions, or just the public. That consistency really matters. People trust leaders when the message doesn't wildly shift depending on the audience, and the values stay steady, even when the pressure changes. Trust comes from alignment between words and long-term behavior, not charisma. Although again, in Carney's case, he also has a bit of charisma, I have to admit. Number 3, confidence. Calm authority, not volume. This is where a lot of leaders might be getting it wrong. Carney doesn't dominate the room. He doesn't rush. He doesn't inflate urgency to prove importance. His confidence shows up as measured pacing, precise language, and definitely comfort with pauses. That kind of confidence, it signals competence. In leadership, volume is not authority, not taking up more space. What people are looking for is clarity and consistency. Number 4, honesty, naming reality without alarmism. So one of the most compelling aspects of his leadership is his ability to name hard truths without creating panic. Yes, there was a bit of panic maybe as a result of his speech, but he wasn't speaking about anything that people weren't deeply already aware of. He doesn't sugarcoat risks, but he also doesn't over-dramatize them. That balance is rare. Honest leaders, they will acknowledge uncertainty and avoid false reassurance. They also resist emotional manipulation. People don't expect leaders to have all the answers. What they do expect is for them to be real about what is known and what isn't. Number 5, level and calm. Emotional regulation as a leadership skill. This one may be the most underrated competency of all. In high-stakes environments, for example right now, economic instability, global uncertainty, political pressure, Carney remains notably level. That calm does two things. It lowers collective anxiety, and it creates space for better discussion and better decision making. Emotionally regulated leaders help others to think more clearly. And right now, that choice to be calm, it isn't a passive choice, in my opinion. It's actually very strategic. And finally, I'm going to share a bonus competency that truly great leaders display and was on full display at WEF during Mark Carney's speech. And it may have been easy to miss if you were only listening for policy or expertise. He tells a story. In his Davos speech, he doesn't just present ideas. He uses a classic storytelling structure, a clear setup, a simple metaphor, and a meaningful payoff. The analogy of the sign in the window is a classic narrative device. It does 3 important things. First, it grounds abstract ideas into something concrete. Complex global challenges suddenly feel more understandable, more manageable, not so overwhelming. Secondly, he uses repetition with purpose. So if you notice, he returns to the image, reinforcing the message without sounding repetitive. He uses a lot of phrases where he says something and then he says the same thing but just uses some different words. That's how stories stick. Our brains are wired for patterns, for images, not bullet points. And thirdly, he brings people along with him on his journey as he weaves a picture that people can relate to. That's the real power of storytelling and leadership. Strong leaders don't just go out and try to inform their people. They try to orient them. They give people a mental map, something to hold on to when the terrain feels uncertain. They create a vision that people can really sink their teeth into and will want to follow. It's inspirational. And in my experience, when there's moments of volatility in an organization, leaders who can create meaning, not just direction, well, they earn attention, they earn trust, and they definitely earn followership. That's actually communication flair, and it's a sign of really deep leadership skill. So here's what you can take away from what I'm talking about. You don't need a global stage to practice this kind of leadership. You can apply it today, just maybe on a smaller scale. For example, in your team meetings, during organizational change, or in moments of uncertainty or conflict. Leadership that people follow isn't about being louder or taking up more room or having people notice you. It's about clarity and honesty. It's steadier, and it definitely treats trust as something that is earned every single time you speak. And that's why this leadership style resonates right now. Well, I hope you found some value in today's content, and if you did, just a small reminder to subscribe to my channel, like the video, leave me a comment on what you're seeing in terms of leadership competencies that are seen as valuable in today's volatile world. And come on back and check out some of my future videos. I really appreciate your support. And until then, keep on striving. See you next time. Bye-bye.